Every time you tell someone what you're planning, you weaken your ability to actually do it, because once ideas are exposed, they become public property. They get analyzed, consumed, doubted, sometimes even sabotaged. Machiavelli wasn't silent because he was shy. He was silent because he understood this simple rule: if they don't see you coming, they can't stop you. The ones who move quietly, no noise, no reveals, they're the only ones who reach the center without resistance. No one fights what they don't understand. No one resists what they can't predict. And the more you explain yourself, the more they understand you. And once they understand you, they can anticipate you. And a predictable man is easy to control. This video isn't about silence, it's about power. It's not about isolation. It's about knowing what should never be shown. In a world that demands you be transparent, Machiavelli warned against the kind of transparency that leaves you exposed. 3 daily habits that destroy you without realizing. First, when you talk about your goals before you start, you get a fake rush of dopamine. People congratulate you, admire you, you feel like you've begun, but you haven't. That fake sense of accomplishment kills you because your brain can't tell the difference between real achievement and social praise. You relax, you lose momentum, you fail, and the worst part, no one sees you fail because you never actually started. You just disappeared after making promises, and anyone who promises publicly and vanishes loses weight in their eyes. Even if you return later, they'll never look at you the same. Second, when you explain yourself too much, when you say, "I said that because I was nervous. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was trying to be clear." You think you're connecting, but really, you're exposing yourself. The person who always explains himself looks like someone who doesn't understand himself, and no one trusts a person who doesn't trust himself. Mystery isn't arrogance. Mystery is a psychological message. I understand, but it's not necessary to explain. People who see you that way choose their words more carefully. They weigh their moves around you. They respect you more than they understand you. Third, when you open up to someone who has nothing to lose, these people seem kind, but they're dangerous in their emptiness. They don't have a reputation to protect or success to defend. So when you share your pain, your fears, your weak spots, they listen, they store it, and in the first argument, in the first fallout, they'll use it against you like a psychological weapon, not because they're evil, but because you handed them the ammunition. Machiavelli believed your real secrets aren't your plans. They're your patterns, your reactions, your body language when you're nervous, the word you repeat when you lie, the shift in your voice when you feel exposed. If your opponent learns those, they can break you without touching you. And people, they're not always enemies, but they're not always friends either. They're observers. They test. They build mental images of you, not based on your truth, but based on whatever leaks you've allowed. That's why mystery is power. It blocks the leaks. No one knows where you start. No one knows when you'll end. They don't know your full position or your real intention. The mysterious man cannot be used against himself, but the exposed man, even if he's pure, gets trampled. Have you noticed that those who explain themselves the most are understood the least? It's as if people get tired of analyzing them, so they shrug and say, "He's complicated." But the one who says little keeps people curious. They search for him. They try to interpret his silence. They respect him more than they understand him, because what's unspoken is always more powerful than what's said. The smartest people, they know when to leave the door slightly open, not locked shut, not wide open, just open enough to keep people balanced between respecting them and needing to know more. If you've made it this far in the video, you're probably someone who doesn't just listen to words, you read between them. Someone who doesn't just want information, but wants to learn how to think differently. So I won't explain this next line too much. If you feel this type of content isn't something you should lose, subscribe now, because repetition here is rare and timing is never neutral. I won't remind you again, because those who understand the value of silence don't need anyone to shout. In the next part of the video, I'll flip the table. Why even your good intentions should never be spoken out loud. and why Machiavelli believed that a kind confession is the first weapon your enemy will use against you later. Every time you say, "I was just trying to be honest," you think you're easing tension, clarifying, explaining, removing doubts. But the truth? You're handing your opponent the keys to your psychology. Machiavelli wasn't against good intentions. He was against announcing them, because once you declare them, they become an open weapon, something others can question, reinterpret, and weaponize against you. In politics, in relationships, in any public setting, intentions should never be stated. They should be built. Once you speak them, they lose their mystery. They stop being a flowing river and become a map anyone can read. And when everyone can read your map, they start reorganizing your actions based on what you said, not what you did. Picture this. A man tells his coworker, "I'm not chasing a promotion. I just want peace of mind." Weeks later, when he starts getting noticed, people will say, "Didn't he say he doesn't care about the promotion?" His own words become a charge against him, not because he changed, but because he exposed his intentions too soon. The mysterious person, in contrast, can move in every direction without being held accountable for old statements, because he never made any. He didn't box himself in, didn't shrink himself into a definition, and that is real freedom. Machiavelli wrote it coldly, sharply. A man who reveals his intentions raises a watchman over himself, and that watchman isn't some external authority. It's every person who heard you. People don't remember your intentions. They remember your words. They shrink you into sentences. They hold you accountable for exceptions. They throw your own statements back at you every time you deviate. Your words don't become your freedom. They become your shackles. So when you start a project, don't talk about it. Let it grow in the dark, away from expectations, away from pressure, away from the eyes of those who can't tell the difference between a natural failure and a humiliating fall. When you change your mind, don't explain, just change. The ones who demand explanations aren't seeking understanding. They're looking for weak spots. When you walk away from a relationship, a belief, a position, don't apologize over and over, because excessive apology tells them you're unsure, and maybe you'll come back. But silence is a closed door, and anyone who wants to open it will have to knock, respectfully. Now tell me, do you remember the moment you opened your heart to someone with good intentions, and that moment later became your weakness, a threat, a bargaining chip, a joke? Machiavelli understood, even your best intentions can be used as weapons once you let them out. These moments aren't rare exceptions. They're the inevitable result when you forget that every word has a life of its own, and words that aren't measured before they're spoken always return with a price far higher than you expected. Machiavelli never preached lying. He simply understood that there's a kind of truth that destroys you, because the world doesn't judge you by your intention. It judges you by what it thinks you said. People won't hold you accountable for what you meant. They'll hold you accountable for what they thought you meant, and the more you say, the larger the margin for error, and the faster the fall. Mystery isn't luxury, it's psychological protection, a mental shield that stops people from entering your mind without permission. It leaves them with the image, but hides the essence. It lets them know you're present without letting them know who you really are, and that kind of presence is what makes people think twice before interrupting you, before crossing you, before testing you, because they don't have your map. And when someone doesn't have your map, they fear taking even a single step toward you without caution. That's why you'll hear people say things like, "There's something about him, but I can't figure out what it is." Those people, they understood Machiavelli without ever reading him. They didn't explain much, they didn't clarify, they didn't announce their next move, but they were always there, respected, accounted for, never underestimated, because mystery, in the end, isn't about hiding information. It's about projecting authority. And if you're still here, if you've made it to this point in the video, then let me say something without flattery. You're not average, because the average person doesn't finish videos like this. They stop at the first uncomfortable moment. They skip what doesn't entertain. But you're the kind that notices details, the kind that reads the tone between the words, the kind that understands what's said publicly isn't where power is built. And you know full well, this space, this type of content, is rare. That's why, for the last time, I'll remind you, subscribe now. Not because you've been asked, but because you're the kind of person who knows when something shouldn't be missed. This isn't a channel for everyone, and that's exactly why you're still here. Machiavelli isn't famous because he said a lot. He's remembered because he said little, with deadly precision. He didn't write endless books on how to live, or how to win friends, or how to be loved. He left behind ideas sharp as blades, ideas that, if handled wrong, would cut their wielder, but if understood, they let you walk through the world like a shadow that no one can catch. He never wanted to be fully understood. He didn't want to be loved. He wanted one thing: to never be bypassed. And in an age that forces you to share, to explain, to justify, to expose every moment, to strip yourself bare just to feel accepted, in the end, only one type of person remains: the one who understood that mystery isn't a wall, it's armor. The one who knows that the less you say, the more you become, and what's left unsaid protects you more than you think. So stay mysterious, stay solid, stay in the background, but everywhere. In a world that applauds the loudest voice, Machiavelli chose to whisper, and everyone who heard him was never the same again.